the Kolkata Port Trust Anniversary Lecture 2004, Healthy Oceans. Now, as you know, the healthy oceans are vital for our health as well, health of our environment. We all know that our environment is not we have inherited from our ancestors, but is what we have borrowed from our progeny. So now Dr. Shane, former Vice Chancellor, Jadavpur University, Minister in charge, Power, Science, Technology and Non-Conventional Energy Source Government of West Bengal would present his speech. He has been an eminent educationist, graduated from BE College, a topper. He did his PhD from the University of London with specialization in electrical machinery, recipient of various prestigious awards, medals, including University Gold Medal, Ashutosh Mukherjee Memorial Medal, and also the Honorary Fellowship of the Imperial College London. He has also been a DSc Engineering. He has also held positions of eminence in various academic and administrative spheres. Currently, he is also serving as Honorary Advisor to the Government of Sikkim and Honorary Member of Sikkim State Planning Commission. May I now request Dr. Sen kindly to deliver his speech.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Chakraborty, Sri Meena, Sri Bhaskar Nathi, and respected personalities, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I like to apologize for my throat. As you know, old age has attacked my throat to a certain extent, and I generally do not go to conferences like this just because of that. But I couldn't resist temptation of meeting Dr. Chando, with whom I had the pleasure in working for quite a few years. The subject which I chose, I won't say it is very scientific, but it is scientific to a certain extent. And when I was asked to choose a subject, I was wondering whether I should choose something connected with the activity of the port commissioners, which unfortunately I don't know much, as Dr. Chakraborty, Satyesh Chakraborty has given you a wonderful picture of the past and the present. But I know something about ocean. So I was wondering whether I can connect ocean with my present love, that is the energy and environment. So I choose a topic as healthy ocean, but probably after thought, when I was doing this noting, it could have been better had it been energy and ocean. So with that apology, and also that I couldn't, because of shortage of time, I couldn't prepare either PowerPoint or transparency. So I'll tax you to a certain extent with a lot of data. But I feel that, as usual, in my whole career as I have seen, and especially the last 20 or 25 years, that human as being, we are very conservative. We don't like change. We like to stick to the older form of things. And in certain cases, we oppose changes. Whenever, even when we are given lot of information, lot of scientific information, scientific data, and also the test results, but we resist changeover from one system to another. So generally, this experience came to me when I was in the university, going over to various places, and I found that the most beautiful recipients of this thought, who think about it, who question about it, are the children, school children and the junior college children. And from that thought, probably you have seen, some of you have visited, the energy education park, which came to my mind, that there must be something about energy education. What is coming before the students of various schools and colleges? Now why I say so, because now it is this 21st century, as I find, as I go through the various developments going on, technological developments, scientific developments, 21st century is a very, very crucial century. When we used to say in 90s that we should go for renewable energy, etc., a lot of people used to raise a lot of objection. Especially in this market economy, they used to think about the cost. Nobody thought about the environment cost. I used to tell the engineers that when you are comparing coal with others, you put the environmental cost into it. Though it is very difficult to put a cost of environment into the planning process, but nobody even seriously tried. In West, a lot of work has been done in that way, how environment cost can be put. But now, at the beginning of the 21st century, I feel that we are in a very serious trouble. And my discussion with you is only on one area. How neglecting ocean can jeopardize the total biosphere, which includes the human being on the land, the animals both on land and sea, starting from algae, plankton, etc., the fishes. In fact, the total biosphere now is in extreme trouble. And in certain aspects, in some of the cases, it is very imminent. It says that, though, I'll come to that, imminent in the sense that it says by 2030, that is in another 26 years, you will see the result of the misdeeds of the human interaction, human intervention with nature. In this way, I remember that when we were school students, we used to be said that man will conquer nature. Now I say that nature cannot be conquered. Man can live with nature. Man is just a part of the biosphere. It can live with nature. So whenever you do any intervention with the natural development, you will have to think that you cannot compress one geologic year into, let us say, 100 years or so. But that happened. The natural system, now one is doubtful whether it can cope with the tremendous speed of development which the last 50 years the earth has seen. That is the most important part, the speed of development. So I'll start with certain data. The data is right at the moment, the global energy production in early 2003, the available data, is more than 16,070 kilojoules, of which fossil fuel, now I come to the source of energy. Fossil fuel is 85%, this is the global scenario. And the balance 15% is 7% idle, 7% nuclear, and only 1% renewables. So this is the scenario that, and this fossil fuel is something which is very easy to get. It was at the time, now also to a certain extent easy to get, easy to achieve. If you look at the total globe, it is cheaper right at the moment. You forget about environmental cost, etc. And very quickly in a concentrated station you can create it. So this fossil fuel actually started right from just after the industrial revolution. And peculiarly, after the industrial revolution, when steamships started replacing the sailed ships, we used to call wind energy, old wind energy. When it started replacing, imperialism came. That's a very interesting thing, that the developed countries, they thought that they should go far and wide, and they afterwards turned their whole activity into imperialism. And you know the result of 2 wars, etc., etc., etc. So, my submission is that with the fossil fuel, during the last 200 years, let us say, 19th century and 20th century especially, not only the technology has given you a lot of energy to use, which has been used by a section of population, global population, in search of comfort, turned into search of luxury. The philosophy of life has also changed. That's a very important point. The philosophy of life has also changed. And when we look back and think of our younger days and the present day and the future, most important loss which humanity has made is the loss of values. That's the most important thing, the erosion of values. So it is not that the energy we have just changed from one energy to another. We have come from the past agricultural society to industry-based society, but with that change of economy, the change of human philosophy is also changed. I'll come to that in a very brief way. Now, the first and foremost thing is that this use of fossil fuel, I have given you the total, this is immaterial. The two main uses, electricity and transport. Port is involved in transport. Ships are involved in transport, but that is a very meager one. The main user in transport is the automobiles. And right at the beginning of the 21st century, 2004, end of 2003, 530 million vehicles are running all over the world. And of this 530 millions, let us see what is the nature. Only US uses about 130 million vehicles. So if we take the total energy into consideration, mostly used in vehicles and electricity, mechanical power is there in industries to a certain extent, but that also from the electricity point of view. North America and Europe each uses 30%. Asia Pacific around 29%, but of which India uses only meager 12.3%. China 35% of the share. But China is going very up. Tremendous amount of development with the help of fossil fuel. I'll come to that a little bit afterwards, why they have taken that path and why also India has taken that path. They should take that path right at the moment. Central and South America and Middle East and Africa, each other balance, that is all total about 21% or something. Now, looking at this, look at the poverty, distribution of poverty. You will see that it has a tremendous matching. Matching the poverty in America, poverty in South America. Though you must remember that even in a very advanced country like USA, there is an internal poverty. It is there. But poverty in a general sense is distributed in terms of the energy distribution, energy used distribution globally. That's a very interesting thing. It gives us an indication of distribution of poverty. But when this 16,000 kilojoules, the energy which we use today at the end of 2003, how did it happen? Peculiarly enough, it happened only during the last 50 years, 1950. And it happened with the technological development. Or you can think other way, technological development which generally is ushered by the market economy, market demands that this technology should be pushed forward, It started in 1950. In 1887, J.J. Thomson discovered electron. And in another 50 years, a tremendous development of electronics takes place. Thermionic valve, transistor, chips, integrated circuits. In this way, digital electronics came. A tremendous amount of development, and this 50 years is a very, very important year. And in this 50 years, energy is increased by 16 times. What we used to use in 1950 and what we used to use in 2000, it increased by 16 times. So what we are today, we are using 16 times less in 1950. And if you take the full 20th century, astonishing figure, that what human has used during the whole of 20th century is 10 times more energy than the past 1000 years. So you can see the speed of achievement towards that. And in the technology also, following the digital electronics and side by side the communication development in the communication engineering, the robotics, fiber optics, etc., etc., now we have lived into the internet age. And that internet age has changed the total scenario, global scenario. Whether it is trade, whether it is human life of human being, whether it is politics, everything has changed by this internet age. And generally what we call that now we are from the industrial age, we have come into what is called the knowledge-based age. And the next future, we used to say, we in the academia, we used to visualize that in 80s. And in various conferences we used to say in 80s that we are seeing IT will be coming, mid-80s I should say, and IT will be followed by BT. But side by side BT, the biotechnology, nanotechnology, or the technology of very, very small materials, small quantity, quantum, has come forward. And it will sweep the total scenario of industry, as the scientists say, in the next 50 years. So 21st century as it is has become a very, very interesting scenario, not only from the technology point of view, science and technology point of view, but for human behavior also. But there is nothing to be afraid of. Afraid of why? Let me finish that first of all. Energy, I've said, industrial output went by a factor of 40 in these 50 years. Global economic output increased from 11 lakh crore in 1900, that is 100 years ago, to 210, an increase of 19-fold. So you can think the massive economic change. Population quadrupled to the present 6.3 billion, and water use increased by 9 times. Obvious. Annual car production, because I mentioned car, because car is one of the most polluting agency, a meager 4 million per year in 1900 to 40 million per year at the beginning of the 21st century. So, what is before us? That in search of comfort, man deviated to a certain extent. And from the philosophy of life, what kind of life it will lead. Slowly and slowly it became prey of luxury. One car, more car, etc., etc. And in that way, we never thought about the environment, though since from 1973, when the Middle East, this oil problem was there are eminent scientists in Europe and USA who begged to their government to put more money into the research of solar energy, but it was refused. 1973. And if you look into the picture, The $310 billion was put for nuclear power, and only $1 billion in 1973 in US has been put for, in a five-year term, $1 billion was put for solar energy research. So that was the kind of thinking at that time. And now sitting in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, you can easily see that how total global philosophy thinking has changed the Middle East warfare. The war at Iraq, based on the oil also stuff. But interesting thing that even the literates, the laureates, the authors, they also forecasted it. The future is not in fossil fuel, future is nothing else. I'll just mention a little story. Jules Verne, in one of his books, Mysterious Island, it's about the fight between the Confederation Army and the rest in the USA, and they came out of, at that time it was not USA anyway, from America it came out, they were in an island through balloon, and one person asked that if coal is not there in the world, what will happen? There was one engineer there, Pencroft. He said, future is in water. It's a very interesting thing. Followed by, in 1923, the great J.B.S. Holden. He was at that time in the Cambridge University. He submitted a paper, how hydrogen can be the future world fuel. And that through by distillation of water. You just connect it. Jules Verne in the Mysterious Island saying that water is the future fuel. A scientist of stature of J.B.S. Holden says that hydrogen will be the future, but obtained through electrolysis of water. And dear gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, now in 21st century, we have come to a stage where that is going to be true. This is how ocean is connected. I'll come to that afterwards. I'll let me tell about the energy. So it is not that picture is pessimistic. The picture is how quickly we can change over our mental blockade, from mental blockade to the acceptance level. That is the most important thing in a human being now. I'm not going into the societal problem, poverty distribution, lack of adequate sanitation. These are all known. Lack of clean drinking water, illiteracy, poverty are distributed, because that will simply increase the what I wanted to say, divert it. But it is true that everything came from that thinking that I want more comfort, I want more luxury, and if it is not distributed all over the world, forget it. It is immaterial. So far we are concerned, let us enjoy this. So that equality is missing. Now what happened? Why fossil fuel is so bad and what has happened? So again I'll give you certain data. The most important activity in burning fossil fuel, coal, oil, and natural gas, of which I may mention that coal is the worst polluter, natural gas is the best of all the three. Carbon emission in 1950 was 1.6 billion tons. And in 2000 it became 6.3, 1.6 to 6.3 emission of carbon. And that created concentration in the atmosphere, and there comes the ocean. Ocean is a great sink in the total biosphere. there are three main players. One is the air or atmosphere. One is land with lot of trees and human beings, animals, etc. And the third is the ocean. And ocean as it is just salty water, but inside it, those of you who have occasion to look into the National Geographic channel, you must have seen a tremendous place, a beautiful place, coloring and etc. And some author has mentioned that this is a Garden of Eden. Right from the plankton to whales, the seaweeds, trees, everything is there, including hills, rocks, corals. It's a beautiful kingdom, just as we have on earth, on the land, a beautiful kingdom nature has given us. But we have spoiled a lot of things, which you can see how by our human effort, how we have spoiled a lot of things, especially deforestation, cutting of trees. And today, I don't know whether you think about it, but I think in that fashion, that in 1972 Environment Summit, Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister at that time. She attended the conference at Stockholm. She said that poverty is the worst form of pollution. Just think about it. Human behavior, human status, she is linking with environment. And 1972, 32 years ago, because she could foresee that because of poverty, poor people will have to cut trees for fuel, for keeping them warm, and that will ultimately be dangerous to the environment, and that has happened. So all these CO2 concentration, which is emitting 6.5 billion tons per year, it is going up in the atmosphere. But we have ocean, a great sink. It absorbs 50% of that. Out of that balance, mostly the trees should absorb it, but we have cut trees. So that again is coming on the ocean. So it is pressure on the ocean. And pressure on the ocean means the carbon concentration is going down, down and down. And the latest measurement is that even at 400 meters down the ocean surface, the concentration is going on. Not all the phenomenon can be easily explained, I must say. That why the concentration will go on increasing at a faster rate in the bottom than at the top. It's very difficult to say because ocean is a very interesting thing. So many types of warm and cold currents, and it involves the storms, the El Nino and Hurricane Mitch, etc. But the test which has been done is that below 400 meters, round about 400 meters, the concentration is more than at the surface, and it is increasing very fastly. That is the most difficult portion. That if that is so, then the plants and others within the ocean, all the species will be affected. They enjoy that carbon for their own health as a food, as we get it from trees or animals. For our own, we take carbon, but the carbon dioxide which we release is absorbed in ocean and trees. So that carbon cycle is somewhat disturbed, very much disturbed. So here ocean has a very, very important role to play. And what is the result? Global temperature is increasing slowly and slowly and slowly. From 13.87 Celsius in 1950, it went to 14.31. In 2002, it is 14.52. Apparently, it is very small. But it is not very small. This is the average temperature. We have to think of the earth and the sun. The tropics is the most hottest, and as you go to the poles, it is cooler and cooler and cooler. And there this global temperature, this increase in temperature is creating a tremendous problem. Now what is from 2004, what is the next? What next? What is the forecast? Because two great powers, India and China, having nearly 2.6 billion population at the present, increasing very fast, population increasing very fast. They are using fossil fuel. What actually happened? That all these things were known to the politicians, to the global leaders. And in Kyoto conference, they took a resolution that developed countries who have increased, they have developed their status, economical status especially, by using fossil fuel, and is still using fossil fuel in the form of motor cars, etc., a lot of luxuries, they will have to bring down their emission to 1990 level. You must have seen in a few days ago in the media that Russia has signed. US have not yet signed. And United States, had it taken up the leadership of this Kyoto conference, a lot of things would have been happening, though one Kyoto conference wouldn't have sufficed. 1990 level is nothing. 1990 level is three per million in by volume, in concentration. Now it is 375, 3.75. Sorry, 375, and that is 300. So it is not much, but that also we couldn't achieve. After the Kyoto, then we had the Johannesburg conference, nothing happened, and we are moving ahead. Russia very recently have signed the agreement, agreed to this. But one interesting figure again with the ocean, the sea level started rising. Rising of sea level with the global temperature. So carbon dioxide concentration, the greenhouse effect, raising the temperature of Earth, average temperature of Earth. Sea trying to absorb as much oceans, as much carbon as possible to save the planet. So this is the scenario at the moment. And side by side, China and India is in a vigorous mood because they know that someday the axe will fall on them, that you stop using coal. So for vigorous development, China as India is doing, China in a very, very, I should say, methodical way, and they are increasing this by 30% per year. They are increasing, and they are 2.8 lakhs their generation. India's generation is 1.3 or 4, something like that, about 50% energy, electrical energy. So there was a forecast. International Energy Agency, they gave a projection that by 2030 the fuel use will be 15,300 million tons of oil equivalent. Oil equivalent means whether you are using coal or oil or gas, depending on the thermal property, they make a oil equivalent. One particular unit they bring it. In 2001, it is 7,930, about 8,000. In 2030, it will be doubled nearly, 15,300. If this, from the present scenario, that China and India is developing this, West is changing slowly into renewable energy. But this is the scenario. So now if you look back, if you calculate this projection, that 2030, if it is 15,300, then what will be the result? What will be the concentration? Concentration will be between, because it's a computer model, a lot of flaws may be there. There is the upper limit and the lower limit. Sorry. Lower limit is 478 ppm. Now it is 365 ppm. and the upper limit is 971 ppm. And the problem is that with 971 ppm, if this is the case, then at the end of the 21st century, the sea level will rise by 1 meter. And by rise by 1 meter means a huge area, low-lying area of the world will be submerged. Submerged by salty water. Our neighbor, Bangladesh, it will lose about 4 crore population. They will have to come up. The grain production will lose. Because you must be knowing that India, China and USA, they are the grain producers of the world, main grain producers of the world. Main grain suppliers of the world. Out of that, India and China, if they become poorer, just by loss of agricultural land, then you can see there will be a food shortage. So it is very difficult to visualize. I was trying. It is very difficult to visualize that what will happen at the end of 21st century. So whenever in a small seminar or when I was told about this, I say that it is no longer enough to think about me or think about you. You have to think about the future generation. If you think about the future generation, then you must change your mindset. Technology has given a solution. So this is the first one, the sea level rising. Side by side, another thing is happening very, 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 very wildly since 1978. Glacier on various hills, various mountains are melting, and melting very fast. Arctic ice sheet melting, and melting very fast. It's a very interesting science. It's called albedo effect. What happens that when, in a normal condition, if you consider an ice sheet, solar energy falls, it absorbs something and reflects something. Now as it melts a little bit, let us say the top layer has melted, its absorption capacity increases. That means its reflection is less. So you can see that with more heating, more earth becomes more warm, more warmth comes into the earth, and so more accelerated melting of ice, whether it is a glacier or at Arctic or Antarctic. So it is compounding the ice melting phenomenon. It is a compounding effect. It is going very fast, and we expect. Actually, I had a list of things. Each and every continent has a loss of ice. Whether it is states, whether it is Asia, whether it is Europe, everywhere, Alps, everywhere, we find that by 2030, some of the glaciers will be completely gone. Take India, for example. India in Himachal Pradesh, already a river is losing its ice. Baspa, B-A-P-S-A, Bapsa. And the result is that we are afraid that it's a glacier-fed river. If it loses its glacier completely in another 30 years, 2030, 26 years, there are several small hydroelectric projects. They will be completely out. So loss of electricity is a compounding effect, it's peculiar. That river water supplies drinking water also. So just by melting the ice, the Alps total decay will be 2030. Greenland ice, it has decreased by 1 meter per year. It is decreasing very fast, the Greenland ice. China's TNCN, 22% has disappeared in the last 40 years. And the next is, it is again decreasing very fast due to albedo effect. So this is the kind of thing which is going on. And so far as the ocean is concerned, we have the Arctic, where already 22% is vanished. Satellite pictures. Technology has given you a lot of things. Technology has given you cameras, underwater camera to go into the sea, to see their total population, as I call the Garden of Eden. It has also given you the satellite communication, and you can take satellite photograph. An Arctic sea photograph, it is visually, it's a very dangerous effect. It creates a lot of problems in the mind. That if that is so, then what will happen? And mind you, that it is not a linear decrease. It is an accelerated decrease. One must remember that this is an accelerated decrease. So what you see today in the last 50 years, maybe the rest will be in last 30 or next 30 years or so. It's a very dangerous situation. Now in this rise of sea level, World Bank has given an analysis that Bangladesh will be, as I was mentioning, will be the hardest hit, losing half of its rice production. The price at the current rate, because you always try to put what is the, I mean, if you want to solve it, what money you must invest. 1,500 crores, 1,500 crore million, 1,500 crore million money will be lost in terms of grain and also in terms of environmental refugees. A total calculation World Bank has given because of just 1 meter rise in the sea level. But this biosphere is a very interesting thing. Biosphere has three players, I have said. Each are interacting with each other continuously, like a human being, like a living being. Some scientists have called it Gaia, G-A-I-A. It's a living organism, one supplementing other, and always trying to adjust to the new situation. But if the speed of this use of carbon concentration is very high, very fast, then it is doubtful whether nature can sustain this with its present system, can sustain this development. So again the doubt is there. It is very difficult to forecast because this is such a complete complex process. But there is another thing, what oceans do. That is what is called thermohalic circulation. Thermohalic circulation. Thermo means temperature, halic is snow, cold circulation. What happens is a natural process under normal condition. The tropics is warm, the warm water flows towards the colder region. The surface water is flowing towards the colder region, and as it, you can think of a temperature gradient, as it moves, it loses temperature, warmth to the air. It loses temperature. So in this way, the temperature decreases, and as it reaches, its density increases, and as it reaches near Arctic, it goes down because of its increased density. And as it moves, warm water, cold water rushes to fill it up. So the interesting thing is that there is a current, a strong current. And that current, if we think about the northern hemisphere, we go up to Arctic, where the water comes down and then it flows back inside the ocean, flows back to, let us say, Atlantic, Antarctica, Indian Ocean, and then again joins with that, the total loop. So loop is always going on. Similar loops are there in other areas also. Similar loops, small loop current, but this is the largest loop current, which the ocean automatically manages. It's a very interesting thing, keeping the temperature as it is, not allowing too much cold in the northern hemisphere, not allowing too much warmth in the tropical region or subtropical region, So in that way, the sun's effect on earth is being neutralized to a certain extent by ocean. It's a very, very important activity of ocean, which generally we forget. Now, but as the global temperature rises, your northern hemisphere is warm already, so the movement is disturbed. This current movement is disturbed. And there is a solution that total circulation will be disturbed. What will happen, we don't know. Whether it will create a tremendous problem, but this in conjunction with the carbon dioxide concentration or carbon concentration within the earth is anybody's guess. And it continues to be a subject of great scientific and political debate. I say political debate because there are some major countries who refuse to accept this computer model. But there is a large number of scientists who agree, because the past is this, and this model is just predicting what will be happening in the next 5 years or so, and it is corresponding to a certain extent. But the difficulty is that shall we keep quiet? There is the issue which I was trying to tell you right from the beginning, the issue of mindset. Shall we wait for, let us say, another 30 years and see what happens? Or shall we act right now so that the use of fossil fuel is slowly decreased and use of renewable energy increased? Technology has given you the right. You have heard of solar power, solar photovoltaic cell. Its price is decreasing, though the use is not much, but globally its use is increasing. For example, in the last year, 37 megawatt only in 11 states of USA, they have added 37 megawatt. Its price is now about 10 rupees per unit, per peak watt. So, but side by side another interesting thing happened. That is in the late 90s. There's a wind generation. Please follow J.B.S. Halden's prediction. Wind generation has become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And the prediction is that by 2020, if there is enough market developed, if you have continuous production, the price will come down to 1 cent. 1 cent means 45 paisa. But what is the price right at the moment? Right at the moment, price is 3.8 cents. That means it is less than coal. In Europe, the 3.8 cents, that is with, again, a 85-meter mast. Wind mast is there. As you increase the height, it gets more wind, its usability, what you call capacity factor, increases. Now we have got capacity factor around 45%. With 5 megawatt, that is in Denmark, it has been successful. And the price has come down to 2 cents. So right in 2004, what India should do? India should go for that. That is our advantage, being underdeveloped or technologically underdeveloped. We should go for the experience which the West has gained and install larger capacity wind generation. If it is 1.68 megawatt unit, we are using only 250 kilowatt, and nowadays 500 kilowatt, half a megawatt, each unit. But if it is 1.68, price will be 3.8, as in America now. But in Europe, they have come a very fast forward. 3 megawatt unit and then 5 megawatt unit, price has come down to 2 cents. So you can think, and the forecast is that in another 16 years or so, by 2020, the price will be 1 cent. So 50 paisa per unit if the wind there, then it is easily available. You can use that wind to distill water into hydrogen. Now why it is required? Because wind is not at your command. Wind is a natural phenomenon. It comes any time. When your requirement is there, it may not be there. When your demand is there, wind may not be there. It may come late at night when the demand is poorest. So there must be some storing mechanism. And that storing is in hydrogen. Now already technology has given you the roadmap. Go for hybrid system. I have mentioned that natural gas is the minimum polluter amongst the three fossil fuels. So my submission is that we have a roadmap taking natural gas as it is for whether you generate electricity or go for the motor car in a vigorous way, not any mental blockade. Then natural gas hydrogen hybrid motor car has come out. Right at the moment, day before yesterday I was looking at the internet. US has already introduced 1.6 million out of its 130 million motor cars. So it is creeping into the system. But a vigorous thinking is necessary. The time is short. We don't know. Maybe 2030 what we are predicting, not much will happen. Because Gaia, the self-absorbing organisms, it will adjust itself. But if it is not, then whole humanity is in peril. Whole biosphere is in peril. And at that time, if we wait for 30 years, we won't have time to look into it. So that is the submission, that just before you, the roadmap is there. Only point I'll end with that as the fuel changes into hydrogen, there is a story which came out in Washington Post. It's a very interesting story, that your car is driven by hydrogen. Whole day you have worked in the office, you come back to your house, you drive, take the car into the garage and run it and let it illuminate your house. Because a 7.5 horsepower or 10 horsepower, if it let it run, so that hydrogen will be there. So each individual person becomes a generator as well as user. So a decentralized distributed generation, which we are propounding for the last 5 or 6 years, the distributed generation, the centralized power station which we have conceived through fossil fuel, a large 2000 megawatt station, whether it is fossil coal or oil or gas, is not democratic. It's a centralized, highly undemocratic system. I think you can easily realize that you don't know what is happening in a nuclear power station. You are just given a bill and you have to pay, or in a coal-based station. You decentralize the generation system. So in fact what is happening, community-based generation and distribution, even individual-based generation and distribution, the whole society is coming towards that. And think its effect on the psychology. Fossil fuel has given you large urban population, large multi-storied building, 30 floors. What is happening to your children? They have no place to play. So in totality, if you look into it, it is not the subject of today's discussion. But ocean has a very, very important role which generally we don't pay attention to. That in the total biosphere, though ocean is one member of the three, but it has the most important role to play in keeping healthy planet. With this, I conclude my submission to you. If you have any question, please ask me. And I don't know whether how far I have been able to, but I thank you for your patience. And I wish Calcutta Port, celebrating the 134th anniversary, all the success, including Haldia also, it is including in the same member as Dr. Chakraborty has mentioned. And I wish all of you a happy Vijaya. Thank you.
Any questions?